Good morning, Grant Beacon Griffins. After the funeral mass for Abuela, the family continues to celebrate her by planning a special memorial dinner. We're on page 177 at the middle of the page, starting with My Family Walked. My family walked together through the streets back to the apartment complex, but slowly we split up. Yolanda and Marty left to post information about Abuela's memorial dinner near the restaurant. Brian called people on the phone and my dad sent emails. It was obvious we weren't having Sunday family dinner tonight. I tried to think of another time when dinner was canceled, but I couldn't come up with anything. I walked alone until my mom caught up with me. Arturo, she asked, I'd like for you to cook Abuela's memorial dinner with me next week. My mom stared at me with her intense brown eyes. She wasn't playing. She really wanted me to cook with her. What about Martin? I asked, thinking that was a way better idea. I'd like some time alone with you, she said, walking ahead. We'll go to the restaurant tomorrow and think of the menu to prepare for Abuela's dinner. I thought we were going to chill and honor Abuela this week. This is how you and I will honor her, by cooking together. She disappeared into our apartment. My mom wanted me to cook with her. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Carmen coming up to me and I panicked. We hadn't really spoken since my total epic fail at the protest. How are you feeling, Arturo? Well, we just got out of Abuela's funeral mass, so not great. I knew it sounded mean as the words were coming out, but I couldn't stop them. Yeah, of course, that was a stupid question. Almost as stupid as when one of my dad's friends asked if I missed my mom 2 days after her funeral. I suddenly remembered that Carmen had lost her mother not too long ago, and that was the whole reason she was here for the summer. I felt like a complete jerk. Hey, I'm sorry for snapping. I didn't get much sleep last night, I said, and yawned really loudly. Oh! I left out the part about writing. Don't worry about it, I understand, she said, while looking at her shoes like they were the most fascinating things in the world. By the way, have you seen my book of poetry, she asked. I've been looking for it everywhere, and I could really use some versos sencillos right now. Huh? No, I said, because I'd forgotten to give it back to her and didn't want her to think I'd had it all this time without telling her. Maybe you left it somewhere, but if you really want to read it, Abuela has an old edition. We can go check if you want. Okay, she said, smiling as she followed me to Abuela's apartment. We walked in and the AC was still on. The coolness gave me goosebumps, but I didn't mind. Abuela's copy of the Martí book was still on the coffee table. Here it is, I said, handing it to her. That's awesome, she said. Look how old the book is. Keep it, I said. Did I really mean that? I decided I did. I can't keep this, she said. No way. She would have wanted you to have it. Carmen opened the book to the first few pages and started reading silently. She shook her head. I won't keep it, she said. It's too special. Well, at least borrow it. Carmen paced around the room, reading while I dug through a bunch of Abuela's old photographs. I thought people at the memorial might want to see some. There was one of Abuela and Abuelo on the beach. Uncle Carlos was in Abuela's arms, and my mom held on to Abuelo's hand, while Aunt Tootie showed off her missing 2 front teeth with a smile. Some pictures were slightly torn around the edges, and others were taken in a time when cars looked like round, colorful toasters. Abuela stood in front of a car like that, wearing white pants and a flowing jacket. Her hair was really short and curly, and even though the picture was black and white, you could see her bright eyes glowing. Carmen kept reading as I flipped through the pictures. Neither of us said a word. Occasionally, Carmen made a comment about how it seemed like Jose Martí could be read in any time period. His poetry's political, but full of love and hope, she said, and I nodded. But really, I had no idea what she was talking about. Hey, check this out, I said. Who does this look like? Carmen put down Abuela's book of poems and stared at the black and white photo. It looks just like Jose Martí, she said. It can't be, I said. Martí died like more than 100 years ago. Well, yes, but the building, La Cocina, is in is really old, Carmen said. He could have stopped there to give a speech or something. Hang on, I said, checking my phone for reference. I typed the address of La Cocina and added historical to the search. Nothing came up. I typed Jose Marti and La Cocina de la Isla, but still nothing came up. Then I typed Merritt family and Jose Marti, since the Merritt's ancestors practically founded this town, and a few hits popped up about the late 1800s. The Merritt family is one of the oldest families in the neighborhood, I told Carmen. And look, some of the original Merritts might have had a connection to Marti. So how does that help us? Carmen asked, getting closer. Abuela used to work for the descendants of the Merritts. It's possible there's a link somehow. Maybe that's why she has this photo, she said, jumping up. And if the building La Cocina is located in is actually historical, it can't be torn down! Carmen jumped up and down excitedly. How can we find out for sure? We left Abuela's apartment, taking the old photo of Cuba's most famous hero with us. When we got to the courtyard, we ran into my mom, who sat waiting on a bench. What's up? She asked. Mom, we found something. If this is about Wilfredo, I don't want to hear it. It's not. It's about that Arturo. My mom shot both of us a look. I don't want to hear it right now, okay? Carmen placed her hand on my shoulder, and that rumbling, stiff throat, nervous like a fish being reeled in feeling came back. I shrugged it off. Carmen didn't like me like that. My mom got up and made her way back to the apartment. She took slow steps up the stairs, and I could tell she was tired. I decided to leave her alone. Uncle Frank saw us through his window and came out to give me a hug. You really have grown, Arturo. Uncle Frank was super tall. I may have grown, but I felt like a little kid in his arms. Mi amor, can you help me with the website? I forgot what I needed to do to post something with photographs. And a little girl from Andalusia sent a comment. Can you respond to her? Carmen and Uncle Frank had been working on a blog for kids who had lost a parent to sickness. It was mostly in Spanish, and the site had nice pictures on it. The front page had a picture of Carmen's mom with a caption about her story. Carmen had put in a comment section for people to send questions or share their stories. Okay, Papa, she said. See you later, Arturo. I nodded and watched as she walked with Uncle Frank back to her apartment. She stopped, told her dad something, and ran back to me. Hey, she said, with a sad kind of smile. Her shiny braces made little red and blue sparkles on her teeth. It gets better, you know, losing someone. I watched as the words slowly came out of her mouth. Something about Carmen's smile made me, I don't know, less mad at things. My parents were on the sofa when I got home, sitting in the silence. I think I startled them because my mom flinched a little when she lifted her head off my dad's shoulder. Her eyes were puffy and she kept blowing her nose. She tried to smile at me, but she didn't say anything. My dad smiled and winked. He had a way of lightening even the saddest moments. He caressed my mom's head as she lowered it back onto his shoulders. My mom had just returned to Miami after working for a few years in fancy New York City restaurants when she met my dad. He was in town from Los Angeles where he acted in commercials. He stopped at Lolo's Cafe on the far side of Main Street for a coffee one day. That was where, from what my dad tells me, things didn't start out great. I spent the entire morning apologizing to your mother for having spilled coffee all over her white chef coat. She finally agreed to let me buy her another one, and the rest is history. That's how he remembers it, my mom would always say. It was more like he followed me all the way to La Cocina, begging me to accept a new coffee, which she did. Every time my parents told this story, they each had their version of how it went down, and it often prompted playful bickering. It was the way they expressed their love. Abuelo and Abuela expressed theirs differently. I guess the common thread was that both my abuelo and my dad kind of failed epically the first time they met my abuela and my mom. I went up to my room and checked to see if Bren was online, and I hoped Mop would be able to come to the memorial dinner next Sunday. When I didn't hear from Bren, I checked the family group chat. There weren't any conversations. It was the first time that had ever happened. Someone always sent at least a funny picture or a viral video. It was weird to not talk to my family on a Sunday. I looked at the photograph of Martia again and put it away. Now wasn't the time to be an activist or a poet or any of those things. I took out Abuela's box and looked at the remaining blank pages. They reminded me of silence. Silence was another way to remember. Chapter 21, Memory Games. The next morning, my mom came in to wake me up before my Hulk alarm went off. Up, 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 she said, but I just rolled over and buried my head in the sheets. Arturo, vamos, I want to get to the restaurant and make a list of things we need to buy. But you said we should take this week to chill. I popped my head out momentarily while my mom tapped my leg. Yes, and one of the things Abuela would have wanted was for you and me to cook a wonderful meal together for the entire community. So, we need to plan. I dragged myself out of bed. Here, my mom said, handing me a chef coat. Abuela had this made for you. The coat had my initials on it. When did Abuela do this? I told her I wasn't sure if you wanted to cook or that you were even ready yet, but you know your Abuela. Stubborn and insistent. She was right, and that made me smile. I got ready and followed my mom into the kitchen. My dad handed us two egg sandwiches and gave my mom a to-go cup of what smelled like café con leche. Can I get one of those, I asked, because there's nothing better than sweet Cuban coffee with warm condensed milk in the morning. It's like regular coffee's fun-loving cousin. My dad raised his eyebrow at me as he slid another to-go cup across the counter. I sipped it and my senses heightened. Yes, I was ready for the day. When we arrived at the restaurant, my mom got out of the car to place a black bow on the door. Un crespon, she said, tying it around one of the handles. It's how businesses remember the departed. We put up a sign outside saying that Abuela had passed away. Reading it made me feel as horrible as when my mom had come into my room to tell me right after it had happened. We got back into the car, and Mom motioned for me to take out the notepad and pencils she always kept in the glove compartment so I could take notes as she dictated the menu. We went to every local farm and vendor and ordered all kinds of fresh ingredients. Every place we visited had the same reaction to the news about Abuela. Manny, the farmer we bought our fruits and vegetables from, held my mom for like 10 minutes. He gave us all the produce we needed and didn't charge us. I will be there on Sunday, Doña Caridad, with my children and grandchildren. Manny wasn't the only one who contributed to Abuela's memorial dinner. Alfredo and Melinda Ortega, our butchers, gave us all the chicken, beef, and pork my dad's pickup truck could carry, and then they followed us to the restaurant and delivered more. Doña Veronica was the first restaurant who picked our humble farm over the larger chains. The gratitude we have for her can never be repaid. It was amazing to see an entirely different group of people express their love, sadness, and appreciation for Abuela. I never thought about the farms and businesses the restaurant bought supplies from and the people who owned those businesses. She didn't care that it was a little more expensive, my mom told me. She wanted to support her neighbors. Your Abuela was ahead of the game. She invented farm to table. All week was like that. Hugs, tears, and lots of donations for the memorial. And the best part was, I didn't hear anyone talking about Wilfredo or People Place anymore. I think Wilfredo noticed because he mentioned Abuela's passing in a newspaper interview. When Aunt Tootie read the article, she reached a new level of hysterics I hadn't known existed. The week went by fast. In between planning for the memorial, my mom made good on her promise. We all spent time together doing things Abuela enjoyed. The only part I didn't really like was when my dad came home with Abuela's urn. I felt a lump in my throat and couldn't believe Abuela was stuck in that vase forever. Carmen suggested we scatter her ashes, and I agreed it was a good idea. But we might get in trouble, I said. So, what are they going to do? Make us scoop the ashes back into the urn? I laughed. She had a point. Wilfredo Pipo tried to reach out to my mom, but that didn't go very well for him. She almost slammed the door in his face a few times, and I think he finally realized he wasn't invited to the memorial dinner. That's not very neighborly of you, Ms. Chef. We're not neighbors, my mom said coolly. You don't live in this neighborhood. Plus, I know you only want to come as a publicity stunt. Wilfredo cursed and said we'd be sorry after the vote. It was strange, but Wilfredo's empty threat didn't bother me. The whole week was a love fest for Abuela, and nothing could make those good feelings go away, not even when I found out that the Martí photograph Carmen and I had found in Abuela's apartment wasn't real. Mop's dad said it was a very convincing look-alike, but the photo just wasn't old enough, and Martí had never stopped at Canal Grove. When I gave my mom the photo and told her the bad news, her reaction surprised me. "Oh, I remember this. Your aunt and uncle and I were just kids," she said. "Abuela dressed up as Jose Martí one year and read poems during dinner at the restaurant. It was so much fun." She hugged me and ran her fingers through my hair. Then she grabbed my face and kissed my forehead. Maybe a hopeful plan to defeat Pipo is taking shape. We'll see.